Governor Beiswitz, this is truly an honor, and I thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to make time for this interview. But without further ado, let me start this interview.
Let's do it.
So the first question I have prepared for you is, how do you think Connecticut is affected by national trends in inflation, and what can be done to stop on the state level to help working families?
One of my favorite questions. So, unfortunately, our country has experienced a lot of inflation. So the governor and I and the legislature have been very focused on how we can make the state more affordable. So there are a couple of things that are really difficult for working families. One is cost of housing, another is energy costs, and costs of medicine and healthcare. So here are some of the things that we're doing. For housing costs, we are trying to help more families buy their first home. So we started a time to own program to help families who've never owned a home before be able to afford the closing costs. And this program also provides a guarantee from the state of Connecticut. And so that's been very successful. Thousands of families have been able to buy new homes. We just passed an energy reform bill, which hopefully is going to mean that people's electric bills will be about $100 less a year. So obviously we want to do more. So we're going to keep working on that, but that's a step in the right direction. And the other thing I'll mention, because so many people take prescription drugs, and we were able to cap the cost of insulin, which is a life-saving drug for people who have diabetes, and the cap is at about $35 a month.
Oh, well, I completely agree with that plan.
Good.
So the second question is, we are seeing a lot of polarization on politics and the federal level, and how can young people stay hopeful and engaged when there seems to be so much that's divided?
Oh, I love that question too. So here's what I recommend to people who want to get involved and want to do something to help. You do not have to leave your own community to help. So there are a couple things you can do. One, volunteer for a cause or a charity that speaks to you and that you need and think needs assistance. So for example, there's a lot of hunger in our state. So volunteer for a soup kitchen or at a food pantry. LGBTQ plus youth, especially trans youth, have unfortunately been the subject of a lot of attacks. So there are LGBTQ plus organizations that try to assist. Also, get involved in campaigns and elections, and you're a pro because you were in the Kid Governor program and did very well. So in almost every community across the state in November, there's going to be an election. So you can make a difference by choosing a candidate that you believe in and volunteer on their campaign, knock doors, help them put up signs, distribute literature, go to events with them. And as I said, the good news is there are many, many candidates for local office in Hampden. It's going to be a very lively election because I understand there are like 8 or 9 people running for mayor. So that's a place where you can get involved right in your own community. And I always say to people who are 18 or over, think about running for office, right? If you want to be the change you'd like to see, run for office. You did it, other people can do it too.
The third question is, what are the obligations of states like Connecticut if federal policy is behind in terms of dealing with climate change?
And I'm glad you brought that up because I am the leader of the state senate, and I'll take you back a year ago to the last day of the legislative session. A climate bill had passed the House, and that bill had some really good things to deal with global warming and fight climate change and make our state more sustainable. It got to the Senate floor, but it was never called on the very last night. And when the clock runs out at midnight, nothing else can be considered. Fortunately, this year, we were able to pass a bill to address climate change. And even without legislation, the governor and I want to make Connecticut a place that has carbon-free energy by 2040. Already, we are at about 93% because we have a mix of nuclear and wind, and we will get even closer to that goal in the next couple of years because of the wind farms that are being built off the coast of our state.
And the fourth question is we have prepared for you is, what can you tell young people like me who are eager to bring change in government or policy?
I would say go volunteer with the local party committee of your choice. I'm a Democrat. Our town, my hometown in Middletown, has a Democratic town committee. There's a Republican town committee. There's also a very active Working Families Party, and that is a party that has made a difference in some elections in Hamden, for example. So I always tell people, go to a Democratic town committee meeting or a Republican town committee meeting and start volunteering to help. And about 10 minutes later, they'll be asking you to run for something. Now, in your case, you're not 18 yet, so, but I am sure that by the time you get to be 18, they will have many jobs lined up for you to do. So it's always, and I love that because when I was first running for state representative, I had civic students from Middletown High School that worked on my state representative campaign. They would come door knocking with me, they would put up signs, they would mail out literature, they would do lit drops. They were so helpful. They helped me get elected. And then what was fun was they couldn't wait to register to vote when they turned 18. And a lot of them became very active, either running for local office themselves, or one friend of mine became a producer at a radio station. So being involved, they would get credit for their civics classes. It was a requirement that you had to volunteer either with the Democratic Party or the Republican Party for a certain number of hours in order to pass the class. And I think it was a wonderful introduction to civics because the young people in our town learned who are all the council people, who's the mayor, who are the state representatives. They got to know their leaders. And so that would be my very strong advice.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Good.
The fifth question is, how do we get more young people involved in decision making, not just voting, but in assisting to develop legislation and programs?
So one thing that we are very intentional about doing on the Council of Women and Girls, the Governor's Council on Women and Girls, that I co-chair for the governor, is we make sure that we involve young people and leaders. So we have had young people come and talk to our council, which consists, by the way, of all of our agency leaders. And we've had young people come and talk about legislation that they thought was important. We've had young people participate on our panels. I do leadership panels, hopefully to inspire girls and young women to do things that are not traditionally considered roles for women. For instance, we had a law enforcement panel. We had a panel on women in firefighting, and we had some girls who are in a program that's like the police explorers of firefighting. So we always try to include young leaders in every conversation that we have. And I will tell you that when I was in the legislature and was chair of the Government Administration and Elections Committee, we would always have young people, sometimes kids, sometimes teenagers, sometimes college students, coming before our committee to testify about bills to make their voices heard. And I think that's really, really important.
So the next question is, when you were my age, so 11 years old, what do you think you were going to be when you grew up? Was public service like always a consideration for you?
So probably if you had asked me when I was 11, what did I think I would do, was always very interested in healthcare, and I always wanted to be a doctor. And I think when I was in college, I got more interested in public policy. But I will tell you that really what I do today is a combination of both, because often we have the opportunity to weigh in on public policy that affects people's health. So for instance, I'm a very strong advocate for women's reproductive freedom, for increased access to health care. We've been our Council on Women and Girls has been very active in maternal health care, because unfortunately we still have a lot of disparities in early childhood development, and we are still losing too many moms of color in childbirth, and our infant mortality rate, especially for infants of color, is still too high. So we've been pioneering some innovative programs to try to address that disparity. So I feel like I have the opportunity to do both healthcare, because I do healthcare policy in this role, but also to do politics and public service.
So what did you major in college?
So I actually majored in economics, which also tends, and history, which also comes in handy for my job.
So housing in Connecticut is becoming increasingly expensive. So what is being done to make Connecticut a more affordable place to live, especially for young families and future generations?
So we are trying to make more affordable housing in our state. We need to get it built. And we need all kinds of housing, but we need first and foremost affordable housing and what's called middle housing, because we have right now 100,000 jobs open in our state, but it's hard to get people to come from outside of our state because there's not a lot of places to either buy or rent, particularly in the affordable space. So that is our challenge, and we see it on a lot of fronts. We see it on young people who are graduating from college and they would like to come back to Connecticut, but it's so expensive to find an apartment. And we see it with older people whose kids have graduated from college or out of the house, and they don't need as much space as they once had, but it's expensive to try to buy something that's smaller. So we just passed in our legislature an affordable housing bill, and what is reflected in that bill, and what the governor and I try to do, is we try to allocate resources to help towns if they're meeting their goals of creating affordable housing, because we have very scarce dollars in our state, and so we want to spend our resources in towns like Hamden or my hometown of Middletown, because those are towns and cities that are very committed to building affordable housing. So we have brownfield cleanup grants. Those are to take either dirty, polluted sites or buildings that are dilapidated and falling apart. Brownfield grants help clean up the sites so that developers will be incentivized to go build affordable housing on those sites. And that's also really good for our towns, because you remove an eyesore, you put an apartment building or homes on a space that wasn't bringing any revenue, wasn't generating any property taxes to the town. And so those are the things that we try to do. We will be spending $800 million over next year to build more affordable housing and to renovate existing housing. Because you can't just build new, and we do build a lot of new, and we need new units, but also there are a lot of people who either live in senior housing or public housing, and they're living in buildings that have been built 60, 70 years ago and they haven't been renovated. So we do both with that $800 million.
Makes sense. So there's tremendous inequality in what is available in schools across the state. So what is being done to level the field for all students?
Okay, two really important things. One is this year we have allocated a record amount of money, $70 million for special education. So right now we have just over 500,000 public school students in K through 12. And more than 20% of those students are in special education. That can be really expensive for towns. So we've been allocating more money to that so that hopefully the kids in those programs get back on track. But here is a more transformative thing that we are doing. It's good to prevent the problem before it gets there, right? So what prevents kids from having to get special education? High quality early childhood education programs like Head Start. So what we've done is we have created this year a $220 million endowment to expand our early childhood education programs for 16,000 more kids, and it's going to be free to their parents as long as they make under $100,000. And the reason I focus on early childhood education programs is that research has shown that if a child goes to high quality early childhood school when they're 4, they are 60% less likely to have to go into special education programs. So that is a way to solve the problem for the future, and the governor and I are just so thrilled that we got that done.
So according to my research, the 2018 gubernatorial election was very close. What is it like to campaign in such a high-stakes election?
Well, yes, it was close, but I always tell the governor that we won because of me. No, so it was a really close election. I want to say it was decided by 30 or 40,000 votes. And so what we did was we worked really hard. We had a lot of grassroots campaigning. We have a lot of folks who were door knocking in their communities. We did a lot of phone calling, and we did a lot of community meetings and events so that people could meet Ned Lamont. He wasn't the governor when we were running the first time, and the reason I joke that I helped him win is because I had been elected 3 times statewide before. People knew me, and I was able to campaign with him and introduce him to people across the state. And oh my goodness, we worked really hard. We visited every community, whether it was rural or suburban or urban. We tried to talk about the creative ideas that we had to get the state back on track. And, I'm proud to say that when we ran again, that we won by 13 points. So we won by a lot more. And I'll say that the governor has done a really great job. And he is one of the most popular governors in America. And he's one of the most popular governors in the Northeast.
The next question we prepared for you is how Connecticut has very solid gun laws, but what else can be done to ensure that schools and communities are safe?
So we need to pass comprehensive gun safety at the federal level, because we have among the strictest, or depending on how you look at it, we have some of the best gun safety laws in the country. And so therefore, our violent crime is very low, fortunately, but it is not zero, and that is the goal. And unfortunately, a lot of the guns that are used in crimes in Connecticut come here illegally. They are illegally owned. And that's why legislation that we just passed with respect to gun safety is important, because it holds gun manufacturers and gun dealers that don't take reasonable care to ensure that the guns they are selling get into the hands of law-abiding people. They can be held accountable in court, and that's really important. But we need Congress and the United States Senate to wake up and smell the coffee and sign comprehensive gun safety legislation.
So I was wondering, what is a day in the life of a lieutenant governor like?
What is a day in the, well, so I'll give you today, for example. Okay, so today I started my day in West Hartford, and we were celebrating the building of 68 newly renovated senior apartments. They were beautiful. I was ready to just go move in. It was gorgeous. And there's another 68 of them. I think the total they'll have is 300. So this was phase one. What was beautiful about them is they are in walking distance for the folks who live there of the senior center. Is just right across the street. There's grocery shopping, the library, healthcare, everything is within walking distance. So I was there to celebrate the building, the renovating of senior housing. Again, housing that was 60, 70 years old and now is beautiful. And then I went to the United Way Power of the Purse fundraiser, where 800 women got together, and part of the fundraising was having people bid on all these fancy purses with the goal of using the funding raised to help women become financially independent. So helping with credit counseling, entrepreneurship, building, financial nest eggs, providing business counseling, all these great things that United Way does that helps lift people up.
That sounds busy.
Yes. Oh, and my day is not over. I have more interviews after yours.
Wow. Now, what's one mistake or challenge that taught you something important in your career?
Oh my goodness. So I would say this, that it's important never to give up. So I've had the pleasure of, I think I've won 11 elections, either for state representative or for secretary of the state or lieutenant governor. So I lost one election, and that was hard. And it because I had always won. And then when you lose, you wonder, okay, should I just give up this public service idea, or should I keep going? So I decided that I enjoy helping people. I love public service because you see how your time and talent can make a difference in getting impactful legislation passed. So I just kept involved, and then had the opportunity, fortunately, to run for lieutenant governor with Governor Lamont, and I think we've had 6 very good years together making a difference for Connecticut.
And lastly, who inspired you to go into public service?
Okay, so Ella Grasso, her photo is right back there. Maybe Sam can get it so we can show her off. And depending on how you came to the Capitol, you probably drove by the statue. So here she is. So that's Ella Grasso, and she became governor in 1974, and she was the first female governor elected in her own right in the United States. She was someone who got to the governorship not following her husband, because there were a couple of women like Lurleen Wallace in Alabama who came into office after her husband. Her husband, George Wallace, was term limited after 2 terms, and she ran and won, but he really was the governor. This lady got to the office on her own. She served as state representative for 3 terms like me. She was secretary of the state for 3 terms like me. But our career paths diverged a bit because she went to Congress for 2 terms and then ran for governor. Now I'm lieutenant governor, so we'll see what happens next. But she, I think, inspired a lot of people, both men and women, to run for office. I met her when I was in high school, and I remember meeting her at a youth and government program. You are familiar with those. And I remember when she was talking about what she did as governor and how she helped people, I remember thinking, wow, maybe someday I'd like to be in public service. And here I am, and she was an incredible inspiration.
So do you plan on running for governor like she did?
You never know.
Well,
To be determined.
That about wraps up this interview. Again, thank you so much for taking the time for this interview. It was truly an honor.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming to the Capitol. Isn't it beautiful here?
It really is.
There you go.